Guru team, welcome back. Welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 24 Tips and Tricks with me, your host, Long John Silver. How are you? We are here in the Pilatus PC-12 NGX, and what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at the Honeywell Apex Prime Autopilot system. But before we do, let's just have a look at this. Is it just me? Or is that a woman in a red cocktail dress flying a plane? Anyway, enough of that. So here we are, and it's kicking in. So if you have been following my series and you have been working your way through the missions and so on and so forth, you will probably have spent quite a bit of your time on the Garmin's, and I have been through the Garmin 1000, Garmin G3X Touch, and the Garmin 3000, and they're all pretty much of a muchness. Now, this probably will be the first time you will get into a plane with an autopilot system that is very much different than that. And this autopilot in particular has a lot of problems, and you need to be very careful with it. What problems does it have, you ask? Well, I am going to cover those problems with you. And we'll start with those problems because I think it's important that you get this right from the very beginning so that we can talk about moving forward from there. And it starts way back in the electronic flight bag. So this is the electronic flight bag, and if you haven't watched any of my other series, I'll run over some of this in the basics before I run over some of the particular issues that you will run across. Issue a reward for the Honeywell Autopilot system. So this is the electronic flight bag, which I'm sure you're aware of, which dictates where you're going and how and everything else. You'll see that we don't have any speeds or altitudes or anything else logged just yet. It's an RNAV approach to the final destination, and that is fine. And it seems to be a departure procedure LIA 6 via ENO. So there's a couple of things you first want to check. So you want to check cruise flight level 300 for a vehicle like this. That's 30,000 feet. That's perfectly fine. Do be aware ATC will sometimes send you to 31,000 feet or even 32,000 feet, which could be a bit more challenging. If we have a look over here, we can have a look at the runways, because this is saying runway 28, and the game has a very bad habit of sending you to the wrong runway. So this is actually recommending runway 32, but it seems to be that there is no wind, so it probably really doesn't matter changing it. Now, I would say that you can sometimes run across quite a lot of issues if you change things in any autopilot, but in particular with the Honeywell. If you don't need to change it, don't change it. So that's perfectly fine. We'll have a look at the weather. The weather says 1020 hectopascals, which is very interesting. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. So that's fine. We can stay where we are. Runway 28 probably doesn't matter. This departure procedure, though, this is going to be a problem. And I know it's going to be a problem because I've flown this very departure procedure for, and I know exactly why it is a problem. So why it is a problem is this turn. So it wants you to go here and turn, but the autopilot won't reach that destination. It will turn before that destination. That causes this autopilot a significant issue because it doesn't automatically change to the next position. So if you see this, procedure like this, I highly recommend that you completely change it. In particular, it's these two things here. If you see this on a flight plan, 485 and intercept, etc., this is going to cause you a problem. Trust me. You can do it anyway and get into trouble, but this is going to cause you a problem. I'll also explain why later. So you can't, unlike other waypoints, you can't delete these waypoints here, right? That's just, I can't do anything with that waypoint, can't do anything with the other waypoints. So you don't really want this here. So what we want to do is we could possibly just do VFR And you can see here that we're going to be going out this way, which would be left auto. That would then connect our lineup from here, which would be fine. You could do a left 45, which would give you a little bit of a turn as well. That's probably less of a problem. You could do straight auto, which will just take you out straight. I think we'll just do straight auto on VFR. It's going to want to say, do you want to keep IFR? We do. We're just changing the departure. So we'll zoom in and we'll have a look. Make sure our departure makes sense to us. See what it says. So what it is now saying is that we will be taking off ideally straight that way on that runway. Now that is runway 28. This is runway 28. This is all fine. That's all fine. So don't need to worry about any of that. If we go now, we can see this has been populated. So it now understands that we've actually got something that's going to work, which is great. And we've got an approach, which is fine. I'm not going to be covering approach procedures in this video. Like all of my other autopilot videos, I'll be covering the specificities of the RNAV, the ILS, and the VOR approaches for the Honeywell in later videos. But basically I'm just saying, just check everything in your electronic flight bag, makes sense. Runway 36, you say. Really? Let's have a look. Yes, runway 36 is the recommended runway. That is fine. Now, what you need to remember, what you very much must remember, is you need to come up here and you need to hit this. Now, watch that center multifunction display, which is the one at the top. Now then, this has arrived. This is important because this tells you that you are activating the flight plan, which is great. So, now then, that means that the flight plan is activated and we are all happy. I will have a look at that in a minute. So that is very important. Trust me. Right from the very beginning, you need to make sure that there are no gaps. And we'll have a look at the flight plan in detail when we get there. But that's an important step you have to do with this autopilot when you are starting. Check your EFB, make sure any of those 485 feet intercepts, etc. are removed. Try and do direct as much as you can, at least on departure, and then we'll take it from there. Right, let's have a look at the Honeywell Apex Prime, shall we? Let's just move this out of the way, so that we can see what we are talking about. So, I mean, realistically, primary flight display, and you've got this auxiliary redundant here, which is a backup. I believe this is like an individually powered backup should the rest of it fail, which is fine. It has your pitch and roll and yaw and your climb and your altitude and your speed and so on, which is all great. Exactly the same as you have in the main part of your primary flight display. Now, the primary flight display is kind of similar to Garmin in a lot of ways, but obviously different as well. It's a slightly different look, I feel. I quite liked the stuff across the top in the Garmin. This does not have that. Everything tends to be arranged on the display, which makes it a little bit messier in my opinion. None of these bezel buttons work over here. None of them work over here. The screen is automatically split into the primary flight display, the engine details, and the nav and comm details. I've not found a way to get rid of that, so it basically just stays there, and that's not bad. I mean, the nav and comm do without, but certainly the engine details are very helpful because you don't have those anywhere else. So this multifunction display is for other stuff. So we have our normal primary flight display, and etc, 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 and thing. If you want to go over here to the HSI format, you can change the format of your HSI. You can have the half arc, or you can have the full compass rows. I like to keep mine on the full compass rows. There's no way I found of to do like an inset map or an inset flight plan or any of those kinds of things, which is a bit annoying. There is in real life the ability to have synthetic terrain, which, as I've said before, it's like mocks the tarmac. It's very useful for taxiing because you can see the taxi lines here. You might be sitting further back and you can't necessarily see the taxi lines underneath you, so it's a bit of a shame you cannot turn synthetic terrain on. I have tried, I haven't found it. If you found it, do let me know. Like I said, you have your speed types up here. You have your altitude types over here with your climb and descent. You have your barometric pressure, etc. in inches. You then have all of your, like I said, pitch and bank and yaw, and you have the flight director indicators and all the rest of it. The annunciator for the autopilot is here. It pops in when it's ready. Okay, so it pops in when it's ready. It isn't permanently here. Down here at the bottom you have time in Zulu time, 1653 Zulu. You have comments about traffic. SV I think is the synthetic stuff. You've got heading, the heading that you're on. These little dots are reminders on how far off track you are. This is our CDI source here. What is the CDI source that we are actually working to? In this case, it's FMS 485 feet, which is a bit of a nuisance because that was the one we tried to get rid of, which was a pain. But I guess that's still its name. We can have a look here. This is the nav select, so this will cycle through the localizers if you have them set. This is a very handy feature here. This is nav pre-select, so it will show you the next one. So if you have set a localizer, this will show you what the next one looks like. Very handy on approaches, but again, I'll talk to that when we get to approaches. It is very handy. There's bearing pointers, which you can use for various pointer sources and various other bits and pieces if you like. It's not super critical to have them on. If you don't want them on, a lot of the stuff you can choose to have or not have. You have the HSI range, which is fine. I'm flicking things, and so far as nothing is happening. So you'll probably find that a lot with this autopilot. I can hear it moving, but I can't hear anything or I can't see anything happening. So I'll pass on exactly what that's doing. The CDI, this is for your course. So if you are picking a course, now the unfortunate thing here is there's no way to see that currently. So I don't see that coming up anywhere on my adjusted course. So again, there's things here that are somewhat hidden, which is a bit of a nuisance. You have below this, you have a whole load of radio stuff. You have the ADHRS, the PFD, which again do nothing. This is primary flight display settings maybe or something, and I can't remember what this is called. It's aircraft data something. Anyway, we can't use it. The radio stuff down here is for radio things and bits and pieces, and if you want to select that, most of which you can't use. Over here, while this screen over here is not touch button, down here this is touch button, and you can touch these and interact with these. So example, so these are comms, which I don't use, but if you're using nav frequencies, you can actually swap these over. You can't change them here. I'll show you where you can change them, but you cannot change them here. But you can swap them over from standby to active. It is my understanding that this cyan color is all the active ones, and that this is all the standby ones. I do notice there's a thing here now that says standby, which is a bit of a nuisance. So now I'm not sure about what I just said. Maybe this is the other way around. Anyway, we'll worry about that later. We will worry about that later. That's the primary flight display. Over here we have multifunction display number 1. This is the top multifunction display. So this multifunction display, which is situated under our flight control system, has the flight plan in it, and honestly very little else. So this up here, if I digress slightly, this is where we have all of the usual stuff. We want low bank mode, we can switch that on. We've got approach mode, which obviously you know when we get to approach and everything else. We've got heading select, which is fine. You have nav mode, which again is fine. If you stick that on nav mode, you can see here that it is understanding that there is a nav source, and the nav source is cyan, which means that we haven't picked it up yet, but we understand that it is there. We're not close enough to pick it up, but we do understand it's there. When we do pick it up, it will go magenta, and this will go to nav, not GPS. This will go to nav in the Honeywell. Okay. Anyway, there you go. This machine, the Pilatus 12, has an automatic throttle, which is all down here. There's ways to set the automatic throttle and do everything else, and the automatic throttle can actually follow what's in the flight management system if it's fully keyed in. So it would basically follow this speed system here. So if you had it on auto, full auto, it would try to match all this as much as it can, right? So you can set that. I'm not going to discuss that in this video. Again, there's a few nuances to that. I'm going to discuss that in another video. For now, I would suggest put it on manual. Just put it on manual and just don't mess with this, and just leave it alone and just manage it. You've probably been okay managing throttle so far, so you'll be okay without. You don't really need the auto throttle on this. It's not like a major jet. You can still fly it by hand. Isn't a drama. We've got our altitude selects up here. This one is coarse and the other one is fine, so we'll go up here to 30,000 feet if we wanted to. Oh, this sometimes happens. If we wanted to, we could do it in hundreds, but we're not going to do it in hundreds. We're just going to leave it where it is, which is fine. So we understand that. And if we hit Alt, that is altitude hold mode. But if we have a look here, this is our 30,000. So we have a set altitude. So with a set altitude, if we want to get to that altitude, we can either use flight level change or we can use vertical speed. Now, the problem I have with this one is when you hit flight level change, it's currently at 0. Now, what you should normally be able to do is go to this wheel and spin up that speed. It doesn't work. So that just stays at 0. So I don't know why it does that, and I've not found a fix. If you go to vertical speed, on the other hand, you can see that we're over here with VS, and you can see there's a magenta 0 just here, and if we do this, we can get that. So this plane can comfortably climb quite well. I would say let's put it at 1800. Let's climb it at 1800 feet per minute, not descend at 1800 feet per minute, and that's probably okay. I don't like vertical speed because vertical speed will stall your plane, but it is possible. With flight level change, honestly, I haven't found a way to affect it or change it or do anything with it. The only way I've found it to work, to be honest, now that I've set that back to 0 again, is if you get to the speed you want to get to. So say you want to climb at 180 knots, get to 180 knots, then set your altitude, then set flight level change, and it will pick the speed that you're already at, and that's how you will get to climb at 180 knots. And maybe when we're in the air, I'll show you an example of that. But for right now, you can do that. So you can set. This is the stuff I would normally set on the ground. I would set my altitude. I would set my nav source. I would set my nav. I'd set my climb rate. I'd set everything else. I'd look in here. I'd set my minimums. Don't need to worry about minimums right now for this episode. We don't need to talk about that. And I'd set my baro, which is over here in inches. And I can set my baro here in inches. So I can change that 292, 293, 294, 295, etc. But my chart was in hectopascals, you remember. There's no way in this plane to change it from inches to hectopascals. I mean, I'll take any tip from anybody that can find it, but I've not found it. There is no way to change the settings on the PFD. There is no way to change the units on the PFD. So unless you know what it is in inches, you're not going to be able to do that. You will not be able to make that happen. That won't happen. So there you go. That's that. Right, anyway, over to the multifunction display. So the multifunction display over here, this is your flight plan here, and you can sorry, with this one it's drag. So you can drag up and you can see all the way down. Now as long as there's one. As long as it's continuous, that's great. You'll find things that are discontinuities. Now, the discontinuity occurs because of the way I think that it reads the electronic flight bag. So you'll see that's between GoPack and Sockend. And this is GoPack and Sockend. So I think the way that it reads it is it reads this as a break in the electronic flight bag. And then it says, I don't know what that means. Now, fortunately enough, if you do click on it, you'll see here this drops down, it says discontinuity and delete waypoint. You can delete that waypoint and you can reactivate. The cursor sometimes gets a little bit lost if you're on it too long, and you can reactivate it. Now, if we reactivate it, we can see here that we go from, well, that's runway 36. Where are you? You're here. We go from GoPack to Sockend. So it recognizes that this is all part of the one route. And then obviously runway 36, and then there's a missed approach, which is fine if you want to bother with missed approaches, and not required if you do not. It comes up with the reset alt select. You can just clear that message here. You get a lot of these pop-up messages you can't actually do much with. So check your electronic flight bag. Check that it's all working. Check that you've had that activation status. The rest of this stuff really is nice to look at, but it doesn't do anything. So there's initialization, which talks about your time and the date and all of that. Where databases, squawk idents, things like that. You've got this, which is, you know, a way of kind of programming in the flight plan, etc. It simply doesn't matter to us. Most of it doesn't follow through in any way, shape, or form. You got your V rotate speeds, VX, V climb is 130, and so on. So you have all of that. You can send that if you like. It doesn't really do much. And you've got your descent. At least the descent here knows that you've got RNAV 36 set, which is fine when it comes to approaches and various other bits and pieces. It's supposed to have a vertical profile, but we'll have a look at that. Up here you have the aeronautical, which is just all of the various indicators you will see on your map. The flight plan, which just really doesn't help. Terrain, which doesn't help. Weather, doesn't work. TCAS, which is anti-collision software, which doesn't matter. And we have a whole bunch of things here on the right hand side that we have north up, or you can have heading up, depending on how you want. Center on aircraft, which is great. Sometimes you're messing around. You cannot actually drag this, but you can go to the waypoint, or you can go to the next waypoint, and you can come back again. So you maybe want to center back on the aircraft, which is fine. Recall waypoint, which is to go to the previous waypoint. Nearest, which is just nearest airport. VSD is kind of useful. This is meant to be the vertical profile, and it's supposed to come in, and it sometimes does. It's kind of useful on landings, and I'll go over that in my landings, because you will get a vertical landing profile. And this is your plane, and the green line is your plane ascending. So if the vertical profile loads in properly when we get in the air, I'll bring you in so you can have a look at that as we're taking off. Charts is for saved charts that you have. If you have any saved charts, which is fine. If you don't have any saved charts, don't worry about it. Go back to map. And this is your multifunction display. And again, as I've said, multifunction display, there's just nothing that works over here. None of this stuff works. There's no knobs. There's no way to do anything with this. This is mostly passive way of looking at things. There are features that you can use on this, which I have seen on PC, but they don't seem to work on console. So for example, if you click on this, it should bring up a direct to, but that doesn't work. We'll check that again in the air to see if we can get a direct to work. because it would be nice if we could get Direct2s to work on this, but it don't really work very well anywhere else. This display is a mirror image of the primary flight display for the Copilot, so don't need to cover that. We then have this multifunction display, which is very nice. Again, none of these buttons do anything here. None of these buttons do anything here. But it does have some useful stuff in it. It has the gear. This is supposed to be for warning messages and so on. It has your gear. It has your flaps. It has your attitude, which is great. It has your fuel, which is also great. It has your cabin pressures and various other things, and cabin temperatures. It has your electricity things and so on in it, which is all good. There's not really much you can do with this. I kind of just leave it as it is. It's useful information. It's handy. And if you're flying and you're up here and you're looking at these two, it's kind of visible down here, so it's pretty good. This last little box here is very interesting. This is your checklists, so you can go through all the checklists here if you want to go through all the checklists. There's a variety of them, and then you just have reset all. But I mean, that's it. That's all that there is there. There is nothing else. Down here is another sneaky little display. Now, this sneaky little display could be useful, but ultimately isn't. So if you go to here, you'll see that it has the different displays that you can select. Now, I'm assuming there's supposed to be ways to select things in here, but we don't have anything. So the Pilots PFD, there's nothing. There's nothing for us here. Doesn't do anything. This doesn't do anything. None of these buttons do anything. There's no data link. There's no events. There's no nothing. That doesn't do anything. And the same for the rest of them. You can pick the various panels, but they don't do anything. Nothing happens. This is where you will find the common nav programming, though. So if you remember, if you want to program this nav source up here to say 110.5, you can say, well, this is 110.5, and that's fine. And you can swap that with the other one, and you can say, right, so 110.5 is over there, and I guess, is this standby, or is this make it standby? I'm not sure. So I don't honestly know which one is which. I'll need to double check on that when I do the nav source landings. Anyway, this is where you would program this in. You can either do it from here and you can use the keyboard on the actual PlayStation, or you can do it from here, right? And that's fine. And you don't need to do anything there if you don't want to do. And you got your transponder details as well, which again you can do if you want to do. But nothing does anything. So honestly, you're really quite literally a passenger most of the time. You have this whole very expensive system, and literally none of it works. The only thing that really works is this across the top. And you manage all of this with this. And this, as you've seen with flight level change, doesn't work properly anyway. So you'll see now, look, flight level change is now changed to 130. Now, as soon as you click that, it goes back to 0 again. Let us just go up there. Thank you. So it's all a bit of a nuisance, and every time I do that, I mess around with things. So set it back to 1800, which is probably fine. Right? Why does it do that, you say? Well, it's to do with this. So in the real world, the whole system is driven by a mouse handle, I guess, down here. And there's scrolls and buttons and various other things. And the pilot uses this handle to manipulate all of these things on the screen. And I guess the game hasn't figured out how to make that work for console or PC. So part of this is sort of like touchscreen and everything, but it's like unfinished business. It's not finished. So what you have to do is you have to manage where you're going between what you can glean from this flight plan, what you can glean from the map, what you can glean from your primary flight display, and what you can use the flight control system and what you can glean from the electronic flight bag. It will pick up RNAV, it will pick up ILS, it will fly approaches, and it will land the plane, but it is an incredibly temperamental system to try and understand, and an incredibly temperamental system to use, and there's lots of red herrings in it. So my advice is, think of this as very, very simple, and just use this and this to get to where you're going. Watch out for mistakes in the flight plan, because they will drop you out, and watch out for anything else. I will also say that the VNAV doesn't work, in my opinion, or if it does work, it works very, very sporadically. I've tried to get it to work on a number of occasions. I've tried different things, and it's testy at the best of times. So my advice would be, proceed as if there is no VNAV, like you're flying a VOR. So regardless of whether you're flying RNAV or ILS or anything else, treat this like a VOR VFR flight and follow your own vertical nav paths and your vertical nav descents. Okay? Right, well, there you go. That's the Honeywell Apex Prime. That's it set as much as we can set it on the ground. There's nothing else we can do on the ground. It doesn't have an on-off button. It's always functioning, which is great. It's daytime. We could set our lights. I mean, we probably need to set our lights, but we're not going to worry about that. What we're going to worry about is me getting on the tarmac and me getting into the sky, and we'll pick up the nav source, and we'll get the autopilot on its way, and we'll get climbing, and I'll show you some of the basics. Alright, I'll see you real soon.
V1, rotate.
Right, we're in the air. Right, it's picked up the nav source, it's turned magenta, which is fine. But you are probably unwise in setting your autopilot anything below 1,000, in my opinion. So we've set it on the autopilot, so it's going to work on picking up the speeds and everything else. So like I said to you, if I wanted to change now, I could put flight level change on, and flight level change will now pick up and keep climbing at 164, which is, I'm happy with that. That's a fine speed. I'm happy with that. What did our flight plan say for our climb? It said VY was VY was about 130. So we're going a little bit more than we probably need. But to be honest, we got to get to 30,000 feet here. So we got a few things to do. So that gets us off the ground. That gets us in the air. That gets us with the with all the stuff working. Now that we are up here, we can check all this. So we've put our gear up. Our flaps are there. We are nose up ever so slightly. We're not going that bad. We're going to pick up the IFR, like I say. That's perfectly fine. I think we've got a slight little slew. We're not banked, which is fine. Everything else is great. So we're climbing and we're climbing and we're climbing, and everything else is good. Keep an eye on the torque on this one in particular. I mean, I'm here on the yellow line, which is fine. It will get a little bit bumpy-ish when we get near the top of the climb, but that's certainly not something that you need to worry about. at this stage. We're having a whole bunch of other bits and pieces. Now then, what I did say to you was there's a bit of a problem here. And there is a bit of a problem here because what if you decided you wanted to change something and you wanted to go, say, to Amish, which is fine. Compare fuel quantity. We can't do anything about that anyway, so it really doesn't matter. It wants us to go to Zixon, so we're going there, which is absolutely fine. But if we wanted to go to Amish, we would need to be able to fly direct to Amish. Qu'est-ce que c'est? Well, now that's a problem, because you can't choose direct to in this autopilot system. There's no direct tos around here. Not in the flight plan. Not if you click on it. Not if you click here. There's no bezel button that works. There's nothing down here. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's nothing that lets you choose to go direct to. Hey, look, there's a direct to down here. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Direct to. Nothing happened. Yes, there is no way to make anything happen for direct to. So you can't even use this to go direct to. That is a major problem, because if any of these waypoints break, you have to connect to that waypoint. So if you miss it, you have to go back round and make sure you hit it, because if you miss it, you can't. There's no direct twos. This is all working fine. There's no discontinuities. This says top of descent, so now this is good, because VNav might work on this one because it recognizes that we're supposed to be descending. The only thing that I would say is the top of descent is actually not at GoPack. The top of descent is actually somewhere between AZ and Bowzo, who sounds like a bad clown. So again, the VNav system, I wouldn't trust it as far as I could throw it if I were you. Down here, we don't have the vertical path that has come in, so we're not following a path. This is just showing us where we are going at this stage. This is not really super helpful, and probably because it thinks we want to be at 30,000. There's probably just a line at 30,000. So as we approach 30,000, that might crop up, but that's it. Honestly, that's it. That's as much as you can do with this. I mean, the hard part is this. Once you have this operating and you're doing that, and obviously leveling out, again, you know, as always with any autopilot, you need to manage the system when you are leveling out. Make sure you have this auto throttle turned off, because this can mess with you. If you're trying to mess with the throttle and it's trying to mess with the throttle, you're just fighting each other. It's just a complete pain. What I will say as an aside before I leave you here, now that you're in the sky and following the path on the Honeywell, is if you speed up the sim, and I'm speeding up the sim, if you speed it up too much, for some reason, it doesn't seem to, it's not picking it up here, but for some reason what will happen is you'll get the speed on your plane will just suddenly drop. So do also be aware, and I don't know if it's a particular issue with just the Pilatus PC-12 NGX, or if it's the Honeywell system and you get it on the other planes that have Honeywell on it. But just do be aware, if you try and speed up the system too much, your throttle will disappear and your plane will crash. So do be aware of that. Otherwise, this is the in-game nightmare that is the Honeywell Apex Prime. If you've been struggling to understand it, make use of it, make it do what you think it should be doing, I hope this is helpful. It really does very little. In the real world, it does a lot. In-game, they have stripped it down to what is barely functional. To be honest, it is a barely functional autopilot, which is a shame, because this plane, I like this plane. I like the look of this plane. I like that you saw it on takeoff. It's incredibly stable. I watched a program with a pilot going, they're not as stable as that in real life. Who's flown these things going, it's actually very unrealistic in terms of how stable it is. It does, like all planes, have a bit of left-hand torque. So that's fine. So look, if you're struggling, you're not alone. I hope this helped you. It's very basic. Stick to the absolute basics. Don't try and get too complicated. Most of the things in here don't work. They're purely visually cosmetic. They really do very, very little. Stick to this. Stick to flying it using this. Stick to interpreting this yourself. And stick to being very careful to following your flight plan. If you skip anything on your flight plan, you're going to have to go back and redo it. Do not assume that the VNAV is going to work. It may say that it's going to work. Don't believe it. It might work, it might not. Like I said, it seems to be a bit sporadic. In my opinion, ignore it and just fly it as if there is no VNAV, and you'll be fine. Flying it any other way probably likely to lead you flying over the airport at 20,000 feet going, where's the airport? Which I can tell you has happened to me on more than one occasion. So, there you go. The Honeywell Apex Prime autopilot system, for what it's worth. I hope this has helped you. If it has helped you, please click that like. Please subscribe to the channel. Please click the bell notification so you know when the next one of these is coming out, and there will be more for the Apex Prime coming out. If you have any tips, tricks, questions, clarifications, if you know how to drive this better than me, and I've spent some time trying to find everything out, including going to the Honeywell website and tutorial site, which is no use because the real world system is very much completely different to this. But if you do, drop those comments in below. Maybe you found some workarounds that I don't know about that you would love to share. And if you have any specific questions or concerns or things that are driving you mad about this autopilot system, also feel free to let me know, and I will see if I can come up with an answer for you. So thank you very much. I will see you again soon. Ta-ta for now.